Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a belated episode 5 of Rock and Stone, 6++, Toys of Mass Destruction, Vanguard Tactics, sponsored Votann loving podcast, all about them dwarves, that comes to you on a hopefully established semi-regular basis, especially when the madness of a new working year is in play. But we are here, we are back, we're going to be talking all things Votann to you tonight. And we've got a lot of data off the back of some events and some games played to suggest that we've got some very strong Votann players in the room who know what they're talking about. So I think that's a nice place to be. And so I'm going to welcome the other stars of the show very briefly. And we're going to start with the most handsome man in 40k, Jake. Jake, how are you doing, my man?
Yeah, really good. Excited to be back after about a billion years.
Yes. Yes. We're only movement 5. It takes a while to get places. You know, it's tough. It's tough sometimes.
It should be super. Really look forward to be able to talk about all of the things that have happened between now and whenever it was that we last did
this. Yeah, quite a while ago, I think. Quite a while ago. I'm also joined by the lovely James Marsden. James, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm chilling.
You're chilling. I saw you this weekend. I was at your Toys of Mass Destruction GT. Yeah, were there any Votann there?
There were 2, and they sadly only won 2, lost 3.
Oh no! Okay.
Keep a close eye on how they were doing for them.
Did you see any interesting pieces of tech in those Votann lists?
Not that I haven't seen before.
It's quite hard to do, isn't it, with Votann?
It's such a limited roster. Other than taking like 3 of every character, I don't know if there's an awful lot different you could do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pure spam of like. Well, actually, we'll talk about Jake's list. You can spam some of the characters, and you can have some fun with that. So that can work quite well. So what we're going to be talking about today is basically the changes to Votann with the data slate, and obviously much more presciently how things are going for Votann since, because they certainly took some changes, and the game around them changed pretty fundamentally as well, right? If you might remember the meta we were talking about before was Chaos Space Marines and Eldar. Don't see as much of them right now. It's very different. We've got some new players, some new questions being asked. And actually, I think, we've obviously stayed in touch and we've chatted across the last couple of months, but we're all pretty optimistic overall. I think we feel like it's a nice spot for Votann and there's plenty to be positive about. It's not easy and it's not all roses, but I think actually for one of the armies that were in the headlights and focused on perhaps in some of the adjustments, I think actually they've come out absolutely fine and still very much kicking. So if you're a Votann player and you love the dwarves, you can still have a lot of fun with them. And I know all 3 of us certainly have been continuing to as well. So let's perhaps start with what changed for Votann themselves in the data slate, which was obviously some points nudges.
Because I think there's about 100 points to my old list, which was like I could add a few things and change a few things, and then I ended up with kind of 30 points left over. Yeah,
very much so. It was sort of what we'd call a more gentle points tap, right? It was a bunch of key units that, if you remember when we talked about the points drops they got the previous time, we identified a bunch of things that were like, wow, I already like that. Now it's cheaper. Your Hearthguard, for example.
Hearthguard going down was criminal. I mean, they should never have gone down in the first place.
Yeah, Sagittars as well. And so if you look at those, I think it was Hearthguard, Sagittars, the Thunderkin got a rise as well.
Got a slight nudge.
And I think that was it, wasn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah, Hearthguard, Thunderkin, and Sagittars went up. And that was it. Which is, I think, we got off pretty lightly.
I think absolutely. I think considering it was an index where basically everything in it had some play. Yeah. And so, I mean, in terms of adjusting lists and adjusting styles, what did you guys have to do to accommodate the points? Was there anything much?
I'll let you go first, James, because I don't know how much I had compared to you, but I don't think I actually had that much.
I mean, it was relatively straightforward. I dropped 5 a unit of 10 of the Hearthkin, and then I think I swapped one of the Iron Here champions for a Carl, and then I fit 3 more bikes in.
Yes, because the bikes still saved 90 points.
And I dropped 5. I dropped 5 Hearthguard for 5 Berserks.
Yes. Okay. So like tweaking, really.
Which I actually, ironically, think I probably should have done earlier.
Yes. Yeah. So that's not bad, is it? Coming off the back of a slate, you just go, I just nudge this, nudge that, tweak this. How about you, Jake?
I think like my list was also just coming back off the back of like LVO at that point, so I was also playing about with things I like anyway. So I'm just trying to. I dropped 20 warriors. I remember that. So then that freed up a ton of points because I wanted to put in Grim Demeanor on my champion.
Yeah,
so
which we're coming to.
Yeah, so I turned my Carl to my champion. So I don't know if that goes up or down. Then put
10 down
on there.
10 down.
10 down. So, and then I go up a bit because of Grim Demeanor, and then everything else stays the same except I needed now things to go in my Sagittars.
Yeah.
So I bought 3 Grim Wiz.
Triple Wizard, amazing.
Triple Wizard, yeah. And yeah, so if you think I lost 20 warriors, but I gained Grim Demeanor and 3 wizards, which doesn't sound like a great gain, but actually works out quite well because I get to keep my 6 Sagittars, which I love.
Yeah, so that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that feels like in the lists I've seen, it's either sort of nudging maybe one Sagittar out somewhere. I think that's a common way people have adjusted, or trimming down your Hearthguard to 15, perhaps.
Yeah.
Or as you say, in your case, getting creative with the contents. That's what I like about that solution. It's like, well, actually, it's the warriors that are eating up all these points. I still want the buggies, so actually I'll just put little Gandalfs in them instead.
It was that and the bikes, actually. I wanted my 3 units of bikes still.
Yes.
So I was like, I love my bikes, I love my Hearthguard, I love my Berserkers, I love my Sagittars. Sadly, I don't love the warriors as much. So
yeah, bit of sticky in the grenade keyword isn't necessarily enough.
Honestly, I would get rid of them if it wasn't for the sticky and the
XL2. You do need a bit of them. You definitely do. I say I don't run this without any, but I think they are 110 for what they are. I think you can definitely justify trimming them down. And as I say, for my list, it's been the same. I think I pivoted towards, I had a couple of lists where it was more like couple of fort, few Sagittar that actually barely changed. The changes there are so minimal that you can just adjust and tweak around a tiny bit. And I think trimming one Sagittar out where I would have had like 4 and 2 forts, I had 3 and 2 forts, and I was perfectly happy with that list. And then the other, which we'll come to when we think about armies and matchups, but the other thing increasingly is, I quite like getting more bikes in because the bikes feel very good at a number of jobs that need doing right now. So trying to work out how to get a 6 bike squad, or maybe even 12, requires a little bit of moving things around as well. But that's a build I'm still only in the experimentation stage with. I haven't put it on a table because I don't want to build and paint more bikes at the moment. So I'm just playing it online instead.
You guys know I went to 9 bikes and really suffered building and painting those.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. My 9 aren't finished yet. They're still not finished.
I think I did like 9 when the Votann originally came out, so I like to think I went through all that at the start, and then sadly I'm going to have to go through it again because of where I've redone my Votann. So I've have to.
Oh no!
luckily, there's 9 already in the new scheme I've got, so I just need to paint another 9 in that scheme, and it's fine. But I'm putting that off as long as possible, to be honest. So.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, Jake, putting Grim Demeanor back in, so perhaps we should comment on why someone might want to put Grim Demeanor back in. So what else happened in the recent changes that means Grim Demeanor's back on the menu?
So I think this is more just a clarification.
Yes.
Like this is how a new rule, because it was like, it literally felt like countries were doing these rules different, not events, whole countries. So this basically was the confirmation of ignoring modifiers works on your weapons statistics as well as any other statistics you have, just not on your data sheet. So long and short, you can't change the AP. Well, you can choose which modifiers you take. So you can choose to have your positive ones but ignore your negatives. So no more armor of contempt, no more halving damage, no more -1 damage, no more -1 to wound, no more -1 to hit. All that.
It's a huge improvement, right? Absolutely huge. It's a 20-point upgrade on a Hearthguard squad or even a Thunderkin squad, which I say, my instinct was always that was kind of how it was supposed to be played, actually, and it felt very good and very valid with it, but then actually felt not especially relevant a lot of the time once it had been ruled differently.
I think especially with the rise of a few factions now, it feels a lot more relevant.
Yes, exactly that. And that's the thing. I think with the overall shape of the meta that we were landing in after this set of changes, there was a lot of AP reduction, damage reduction, modifiers of different kinds, which meant, I think, for Votann, because Votann's an army where it's a lot of damage to AP1, 2.
Mostly damage to.
Yeah, so having something in there that can get around that is suddenly an absolutely massive deal. And that was one of the nice things about these recent changes, is that actually you kind of came away feeling like you'd been given something, even though you'd also lost some points, right? And I think that was a really positive change for Votann, especially with the meta, as we're talking about. So yeah, overall, I think I was a bit worried for Votann going into the changes, because I felt like they're an army where I like what they can do and they were great, but they didn't have the raw sort of bullshit power of some of the armies in the meta, right?
They were kind of hovering between third and fourth.
Yes,
And
yeah.
Like their Games Workshop's kind of thing is they always want to hit the top 3 and hit the bottom 3.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to go between like 6 to 4. So you stay kind of the same.
Yeah. And so that was definitely potentially a bit of a concern. I guess the other good news for Votann was that they absolutely did come for the top couple of armies in this set of changes in terms of adjustments to CSM got nuked. Eldar probably didn't get quite the same treatment, but did take some very substantial hits.
But I do think the stuff that Eldar did take was all the stuff that was really good into Votann.
Completely. Yeah, so stuff like the Night Spinner going away is massive, right?
I mean, Night Spinner, Wraithguard, Yinkan, I mean, all of those things were horrific to face as Votann.
Yes.
And you just don't see them anymore.
No, exactly. You could feel very played around and very helpless against that build, even with the best will in the world, no matter what you tried to do. And Eldar, I think, still have a lot of things that are horrible for Votann, but I think the toxicity of that combination being gone is a positive, right? I mean, I've not actually played post-slate CSM with Votann, but it was already one where it felt like we had a game, right? So I think
it's playing them.
I played it actually this weekend.
Oh, amazing!
It did just like just was like pushing over a dog. It was just like before it was like a really interesting game, and now I just feel like they've gone a bit too hard on the nerfs for CSM. I think a lot of like indirect things that like they just felt like they had about 1 billion changes, and then you look at the points as well, and it just is sad day for CSM players. I'm not gonna lie, but
no, I agree, and I know that's the case. Our team has some incredible CSM players in, and they are finding it very hard to win games at the moment, and that's always the sign, right? So it's I think it's CSM is obviously got a book coming. I reckon they just thought just put it in the ground and then see what the book does. Yeah. Whereas stuff like Eldar's got no books, so they're like, okay, we'll be a bit more careful with this. But that takes us on to the meta that kind of emerged out of this set of changes. Because there too, I think it's not all doom and gloom for Votann in terms of the armies that have emerged. So from your guys' perspective, what have been the sort of common threats out there since these changes?
Custodes, probably. The big one, right?
Maybe Necrons. I don't know.
Maybe Necrons. Yeah. So possibly some people are playing Custodies and Necrons, right? I reckon they're out and about. I think there
was a lot of Custodies at it was like 6 of them.
I think there were 6 of them, and they were living the current Custodies' dream, which is winning 3 games and then getting taken apart by someone that had thought about nothing else for about 2 weeks.
Custodies are so rough to play. I played both Custodies and Necrons at Beachhead in my rounds 4 and 5, and they were just horrific. Another one I will say, after playing at the ITT and at Beachhead Guard as well, I think Guard is such a rough game for Votann. Like, we have no indirect to interact with their indirect.
Whoa. We have the mole launcher.
We've got the mole launcher, Jake. And soon we'll have some... I bet we get like a mole cannon that sits at the back.
If we get some indirect, you have no idea how... It's actually
undirect. It's going underground.
I'm going to be saluting as I shoot these at guard players and watch as they just rage at me.
I want Votann to get the first indirect where an actual freaking mole comes out the ground in their deployment and just starts battering stuff. That's what I want, like a giant metal robot that you just fire underneath and just pops up and starts eating manticores.
Anything.
I'd buy 3 straight away.
I would as well. Yeah, like, so I think that, like, and also just on top of that as well, like, they've got so much chaff E units.
Yes, yeah.
Hazukin can just get in the bin. What has done unit? Especially when you know, like, when you're one of these players and you've been playing a lot, whether you're an experienced guard player or just the experienced player of the game, you find a literal 1,000 ways to kill Kazakin. The YouTube video of, like, I'm gonna fall back through your models purposely, so I've got to take deadly miles. I'm gonna open my weapon. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna, and they come back and it's just rough. Like Brian Sepp, I will say, gave me the biggest beating of my life.
That's every game I've ever had with Brian. It's just it's the hardest defeat I've ever had in my life.
There was just moments of I was just like, Brian, I can't do anything because you're just simply better than me in every way.
It's good. It's good to know other people feel that way when they play him.
Lovely guy.
Oh, he's a great guy. Yeah,
10 out of 10 guy, but my God, and it just resulted in me then going, oh, God, are actually really powerful, and into Votann, and I started looking into it more, and then I had it again at Beachhead, and I was like, yep, this just confirms everything I've just thought. Yep. It's just a bad matchup. So.
Yeah, I think it's tough for Votann. I think it's one of the matchups where the land fort's all right, because manticores don't hurt it so badly, and it can withstand the shooting a bit better. But the Sagittar builds do not like it at all, because they just get bunged up by Kazakin and shelled to death by manticores, and it's really, really rough. So yeah, I mean, those are 3 of the big names, and Guard are still actually quite niche, aren't they? Even though they're good, there's not actually tons of them around. The meta's very full of Custodies and Necrons. Yeah. Guard are around. Eldar have pivoted away to more D-cannons and stuff, which isn't nice for Votann by any stretch. D-cannons are pretty horrible, but it's not the same.
I don't think it's as bad as the old builds.
No, I agree.
You can kind of deal with them. I mean, especially because, like, Eldar will run out of stuff to screen eventually, and then if you flip a unit of bikes behind them, the unit of bikes can do a lot of work with unit of D-cannons.
Yeah, 100%. So, and that's it. And I think the MSUE Eldar builds are, especially with new Phantasm, very vulnerable to just getting gunned apart by Votann in the wrong places. So that's a big positive. And if we think about, I mean, I guess my sense, certainly with the 2, what I'd call the 2 gatekeepers, I think our gatekeepers right now are Necrons and Custodies. I think these are the 2 you see most of the time. I think these are the ones that you kind of have to go through at some point in an event. You're going to hit one or the other. I've hit one or the other at every event I've gone to since the slate. I don't think it's all bad news for Votann in both cases. No. So should we maybe unpack that a little bit? What are the tools that we've got on our side for actually trying to deal with these horrible, horrible armies?
Well, Custades, I liked Berserkers a lot. Yep. Damage free, super good. It just means when you can eventually get through, you can kill them. Sadly, they do have fights first on an objective.
They do, but that's where Fight on Death's quite nice, right? Because at least you're going to get a few swings in.
When you roll 1 out of 5 falls.
You just be luckier, James. Just be lucky.
That sounds like a
should have known.
Our friend the mole launchers there, like, God, if I got that 4 up, man.
Oh yeah, if I get you, you're going to be so slow.
You're done for. No, so there's that. I think into Hypercrypt, it's a bit like I didn't actually struggle that much into Hypercrypt.
No, I've found Hypercrypt I've found it quite good going. Yeah,
because of the double judgment on the big stuff, and then you've got so much to screen out. Like playing at LVO, it was an interesting one. Like when he had like more of the Doomsday arcs rather than the Monolith. Because
I think if it's Destroyers and Doomsday arcs, I think it's actually harder because it's a wider range of tools. The Monolith is such a Votann friendly thing for them to bung in a list, especially if you have Thunderkin. Because you just have, this is the thing I'm doing with Monoliths in every game I have with anything. It's just like I have one unit in a list that's like, your job is Monolith killing. And they're not on the board at the start, and they're just waiting for this Monolith to do whatever clever thing it wants to do. And then they're going to walk on, it can't Overwatch because of the changes, and then it's dead. And Votann do that very well. I actually, at ITT with Votann pre-changes, I killed 2 Monoliths in my deployment zone turn 2.
Maybe I need to reevaluate.
Interesting. Have you found that one hard going, James? I'm not saying Necrons are easy at all, because they're not. They're really rough.
No, I mean, since I've only played them, I played Canoptic Court twice, and
that one's really hard, I think.
And
yeah, I agree.
Court once I breezed. It was actually
interesting. Okay,
wow.
Interesting.
I got battered by it.
It was just horrific. I won by 3 points.
Wow. Okay.
Really, really tight game.
Yeah. Yeah, so Canoptic Court, I find, because it's got the lone op strat, it's actually, I find it really hard focusing the bricks of wraiths and things down with the Votann. That was an issue I had.
You just don't. I threw 5 Hearthguard in there, void armored every time, and we stayed there for the whole game.
Ah, okay, so you just go and have a brawl with it. Yeah.
And eventually I kill the wraiths. Eventually, my character's going to get to the point where he can see the Technomancer, and then he's going to kill it.
Yes, yeah, he does. He's very good at that. The old Hammer Champ loves to slice up a Necron character. He's great.
Even a Carl will do it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Custodians and Necrons both have in common, is that they typically give you like a dream for units to put your judgment on. I think at the start of the game, Custodians, it's like 5 bricks, so you're judging 4 of them. Necrons, it's going to be okay, maybe a Catan. I typically look at Void Dragon and go, you're going to get your own, so I don't need to give you any. You're just fine. Let's put it on all the stuff that's rubbish at killing stuff, looking at you wraiths, and then we'll work our way around the rest, and that feels okay. I've found Pioneers shine in the Necron matchup because tons of damage to ignore cover, hits Catan right on the invuln, hits and wounding them on 4s because the strength 7 guns with the +1 to wound. Goes through race very nicely, and also just bodies all the little small boopy units that they like to use as well, destroyers and other things. And being able to jump up and down and give them a bit of that back is also a big deal. So yeah, the Necron one, I don't think I've lost it since the changes, which is good. But I find Hypercrypt easier just because because it sort of surrenders a lot of space on the board to you in ways that the other ones don't.
Have you guys played the Night Scythe Hypercrypt build?
No, I have not.
That is what hurts. It's brutal because it'll pick all your bikes up.
Yeah, that's the killer thing. And that, I think, if you're a good Hypercrypt player, that's what you should be doing, right? It's just killing the bikes off for Votann, rather than getting distracted.
Also, I mean, I've played it a few times because I'm trying some Necron out. And
yeah, of course.
It just shouldn't be a thing. It just shouldn't work. It shouldn't.
It's pretty bonkers, right?
It's really silly.
Yeah. Nice. Well, you're allowed to play with Necrons because you have quite a lot of pedigree with Necrons, so we'll let you off.
Yeah. I'll allow it.
And yeah, Custodians is another one. The -1 damage hurts. The fight first really hurts. I think now that they shrug the dev wounds, Hearthguard definitely find them a lot harder to deal with than they previously did.
But following that, I think the plasma is always better into the.
Yeah.
I picked a unit. I picked up a unit of guard and Trajan with my 10 blocker Hearthguard.
That's delicious. You love to hear it. That's what we want. That's it. The Grim Demeanor Plasma squad is just generally back in vogue. I really like that squad now. It's so good for Catan. It's so good for Custodians. It just blitzes things.
It's just good. I mean, it's
just really good.
I think it's better with the Hearthguard than it is with the Thunderkin now.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like,
the Ironstorm is where the Thunderkin unit is probably arguably better because then it means all the you can't like blank the damage, you can't -1 the damage on the Storm Raven, you can't do that on the Redemptors.
Yeah.
But then looking at it from the other side is like actually as a more general purpose, this Hearthguard unit is just so much better with it. So,
yeah. Ironstorm's an interesting mention because that's one I have not played with Votann since the slate. So, Jake, what's the Ironstorm game like?
Bad. Well, okay. So
I mean, they've got what, 9 tanks and a big plane. That's not ideal, is it?
So it's one of those ones where it's really weird, actually. So I actually think it's a game, but it's just too much of a game where it's like there's too many variables that it's not about you controlling. It's about just luck. Like, who goes first, how the terrain's laid out, if you whiff into a Storm Raven with about 4 million Sagittar. When I played it round 1 so I played it round 2 at Beachhead and handed it a very big loss of 100 to 60 or something.
Amazing.
but just by like clever movement of move blocking Redemptors doing all of that because of how the terrain was laid out.
Yeah.
And that also that only worked if I went first. So I like to see that as that was a good luck. And then I had some really good rolls as well. Like I think I killed like an Impulsor and 2 Redemptors turn 1 or something ridiculous. So like, I just put that down to like that was just good luck, right? And clever play using the terrain. Then when I played it on the other side of it with the double Storm Raven, and it's like, okay, well, I've got to try and commit to killing 1 Storm Raven. Got a bit unlucky. One time I do get something through, he blanks it. There's now all my toys are in the open. There's not much I can really do. He's now it's just gonna be the case of right. I just gotta hope he's not gonna pick up as much stuff, and it just goes very much there. I think they don't have as many assets as we do.
No, they don't. And they don't really like having to actually play the game, was certainly what I found. I lost the final to Ironstorm this weekend with Drukhari, and I was sort of like, the one thing I have in this game is that I've brought a bunch of stuff that actually scores points and does jobs, and you're hoping that I'm not going to be here. So as long as I'm still here, I can make this really, really hard for you. But once you're not there anymore, it's much harder to stop them.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's an interesting one, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I think it's how I like to see it is that it is just a bit of a 50-50 game, or if like you just play a good Ironstorm player and you're a good Votann player, it becomes a bit closer. But there is just so many like moments of if one thing happens and it swings, then it just cascades.
Yeah, I think so, and I think Ironstorm can put a lot of 2-up save on the board, and I think that can be quite rough for Votann, and especially when you've got something where it's got so many units that you can only judge a few of them, and then actually you're going to struggle to get into the rest. Redemptors have always been very tough for Votann. I don't like Redemptors one bit. I find them very annoying to deal with. Grim Demeanor obviously helps, but they're still very, very chewy. Okay, is there any other standouts from current meta that we need mentioning?
Done Runes, done Guard, done Necrons, done Custodes. I think
those are the big ones, really. I mean, I actually haven't played new Drukhari into Votann.
I mean,
but
we can go on to this. I did the recent RTT, and I went into Drukhari games.
Yeah.
And they just pick stuff up.
Yeah.
He picked up about a third of my army in turn 2.
It's a lot of very good guns for killing Votann, isn't it?
And then I'm just sat there like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
I've got 15 Hearthguard that may be able to solve this problem. That's it. That's all I got left.
Yeah.
And they did. They actually did. I mean, because I think the one... I mean, you'll know this when playing Drukhari. Like, if Drukhari are in the open or if they're slightly out of position, they're just dead.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I think I actually played the matchup at one of your events against James Blake, right? And that was because I know both armies very well. So when I went into that game, that was, if you remember, we were basically both tabled by like turn 3 because I was like, I know how this goes. I will be tabled, so I need to just rush him and kill the living daylights out of the Drukhari. Otherwise, they will just pick me off. And
that's effectively what I did. I kind of gave him like both landfalls to shoot, both Sagittars, all 6 bikes, and said, "You're not going to pick it all up." And he picked up a landfort, 2 sags, and 3 bikes.
Oh, it's brutal. Yeah.
I was like, okay, you picked most of it up. This is fine. I've still got 1 landfort on all the Hearthguard. We'll be all right. Because as soon as the 10 Hearthguard come down, they picked up, I think, 2.5 units themselves.
Yes.
And then the landfort picked up a Ravager and something else. And then the bikes finished the other half unit off.
Yeah, and once you get danger close, things like Scourge find it much harder to operate as well, because if you overwatch Scourge, they evaporate. So as soon as they can't actually be jumping and shooting at a safe distance, they find it much, much harder. Drukhari is an interesting one. I would like to see it played more, because Drukhari have access to things like Haywire, which isn't good for Votann. I do think Incubi and Melee are very nasty into Votann, even with AOC, to be honest, because it's very blendy. That's a lot of AP3 damage too. But as you say, Votann just have the ability to just delete anything they see in that matchup. So it might be a momentum one, where it's who gets the sort of the push in the right places on the board. But Drukhari don't seem to be thriving at the top of the game. So I think
they're now relevant.
They are relevant, and they are out there, and they're a bit different. And that's it. As elite killers, they are something we do need to be alert to. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Right, well, what we're going to do now is reflect on some lovely runs at events that you two boys put up, because I've been playing Votann on TTS, particularly in team scrims with my team, so I've been really enjoying them in the post-slate world, but I have not been out at events because I am a Drukhari main, unfortunately, as much as I joke that I'm a Votann main. I know, it's awful, I'm outing myself on the show live, but Drukhari are my actual bays, and when that detachment came, I was like, I just have to do this for several months. I'll be back to Votann, but Drukhari need my love and attention after not getting to do anything good with them all the way through the beginning of the edition. So, where do we want to start? Maybe if we start with you at Beachhead, Jake. Do you want to take us through your run there and also anything else you've done lately?
Yeah, so main two I had within a very small space of time was ITT and Beachhead.
Okay, yeah.
So, Tom, you were also ITT.
I was. That was pre-slate, wasn't it? That was a really good event. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was really good. Had a great run there. I don't want to talk too much about it just because it was pre-slate, so there was a lot of stuff that was being used because of that, and also I like to think with my list for teams was different to what I run in singles, but great event overall. Found Votann slotted into a team really well, so I think it still does.
Yeah, they're one of those armies that you can sort of throw at most things and know it's going to be fine. And that was that's always, whenever I go with a team to ITT, that's what I like to run, because I like to take that job, because I'm a control freak. And I'm like, if there's something scary, I'm like, I just want to run at that and make sure it doesn't do a mischief to someone, and then we can go from there. I think that was where I first found Necrons was going okay, because I was chucked at that a bunch of times because that was new and scary, and I was like, this is actually all right. Obviously we have less stuff now, but it was all right at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what you hit, Jake.
So I hear Chaos Knights, Orcs, Chaos Knights, Eldar, and Guard, and I beat Chaos Knights, Orcs, and Eldar. Not Eldar. Both the Chaos Knights and Orcs, and I lost to Eldar and Guard.
I also lost to Eldar.
Yeah, so Eldar was the weird one where like that game just felt like I couldn't really do much, and I just had to try. Well, we knew it was a loss for me, and I was just trying to score points, and then the Guard game was just like being taken to school. So that was good. But then, like I thought, the Chaos Knight game was going to be relatively okay anyway, and the Orcs game was even way better than I thought it would ever be.
Yeah, Orcs is pretty good for Votann. I generally find World Eaters as well.
I've played Orcs a couple of times, and it's been fine.
Yeah, the Hearthguard unit enjoys killing like knobs and all that. So
and it's just so much damage to ignores cover shooting again, and they just all there. Once the guys are out the trucks, they just all die in droves.
I found the Hearthguard and the Landfall's really, really helpful, because you put the Void Armor on. Most of the Orc stuff is AP1.
Yeah.
It goes to AP0, and then you're bouncing off 12 saves.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then so then going into Beachhead, so that was the new slate that was using the Grim Weirs and all of that. So game one played Death Guard. That was actually really interesting game, because the main two auras of that -1 save for that -1 to weapon skill ballistic is massive.
Yeah, it's really rough.
So he went the -1 weapon skill ballistic skill, and just proceeded to it was a really tight game. I think it finished like 98 to 80 something. One of those you could look at the models left and go, oh right, but then when you look at the scores, you're like, oh. Okay, that is close. I do think Death Guard are very good into it.
I agree. I think Death Guard are very good.
I also agree from my South Case experience with Alex Petford. Their -1 save actually is probably the better of the two.
I think so, just because of I think they just want to clear you out as quickly as they can. I've seen people choose both. They're both horrible, but I think our shooting, even if you mildly debuff our shooting or melee, and again we've got a key unit that can ignore that. I think it's better to just kill us.
Yeah, I agree. So that was game one. Game two, obviously the Iron Storm. So like I've sort of previously mentioned, doing a lot of move blocking, doing that. It's very swingy. Could have been either person's game. Luckily, it was mine in this instance. So beat that. Then I played Gladius Blood Angels. That game was just quite unfortunate because he deep strikes Dante with some Vanguard vets and had the Death Company with -1 damage and all this in the middle. Hearthguard unit comes down, proceeds to one-shot the Vanguard Vector unit.
It'll do that.
Through shooting, and then charges the Death Company unit and proceeds to pummel it because -1 damage doesn't matter. And there's like 800 points dead in turn 2 from one unit, and you're just there like, well, that happened, I guess. So yeah, so that was another win. Like again, relatively easier, much easier matchup when that happened. But again, because they can be so aggressive, if you just do a good charge and you tag a load of stuff, it becomes very interesting. But again, like I also ultimately think the shooting output from the army, if you don't have to interact with it in its main thing it's good at, which is combat, that you don't, why would you, type of thing.
Yeah.
So that was good. Then I played Custode, so this is where it got a bit interesting because there was about 30 million bodies, or 30 to be exact, not million. Trajan was there, some Blade Champs were there,
yeah.
Draxus was there.
Daring today.
Yeah, and it was really weird because I will caveat this with, and Adam knows I've said this about a million times. I've said it on podcast. I've said it to him before. I said it to anyone. Is that the terrain for round 4 was dreadful, but there was nowhere for the Custodians to hide.
Oh man, right?
And they had to come out, and it was Purge the Foe. So initially, I was like, oh my god, this is going to be so rough for me. I'm going to lose, and it's not going to be close. And because I struggle really hard to kill his units. He relatively easily kills my units. It's an interesting one, right? Actually, when you pick up 10 Wardens, 5 Guard, Draxus, and Trajan in one go, it's not that difficult. And there was also he sort of bless him. I've played him a lot. His name's Tom. He's a lovely chap, very good player as well. But I think what just happened was I put a load of stuff out, and I was like, okay, you've run at me. I've now got to try and deal with this because if I don't kill this, you're going to tag me and you're going to ruin me. So I put a lot of stuff out, and he was like, cool, I'll feel no pain in your shooting. And I was like, I actually don't know if that is the right decision you should do. Not in my head, because I'm like, well, now you don't have feel no pain versus my berserkers.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I'm just going to relatively ignore these Wardens, manage to kill the guard unit relatively easily with casino cannons and all that, and then move on to the other units, killed a few Wardens and stuff, then charged 15 berserkers into this whole combo. One unit fights on death, kills 5 of the berserkers, and 2 out the other unit. Got relatively lucky, fought on death with 4 of them, smack the unit of Wardens back and murder it.
Yeah.
From the fight on death, and then the other guys get to just pummel Trajan, and then the other unit just finishes off the Wardens. So
very nice.
And then that from there, it was just very oh boy, you're dying.
Yeah.
And I'm holding objectives, and it's great.
And that I think highlights a few big things for the Custodians game, and I'm sure we'll come back to this because James played Custodians a little while ago as well. Yeah. And the sequencing of things is a big deal when things happen like the Feel No Pain, whether they're able to do things like the -1 damage and the fight first, how they can utilize all the different tools. But the terrain is also a very big deal. So we've got a player, Connor, in our team who took Custodians 2 in RTT recently, and I saw the Votann list he was lined up against, and I knew the event he was at and the kinds of boards that it had, and I was like, it's just no way. There's just no chance. If that gets to activate into several bricks of Custodians for multiple turns, it's just not going to happen. If they don't have good staging and hiding, or they can't just take one almighty punch and then get in, it's really, really tough for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. So then I played Necron's Hypercrypt, Void Dragon, a bunch of destroyers, and a monolith. So it's a mix of the stuff. I got really lucky, killed Void Dragon turn 1 due to I went first, managed to scout, shot that off, and then monolith. Yeah, then I put a lot of into it, but it did it. And then monolith comes out to play. I get very lucky on the old casino cannons, 6 the hit, 6 the sustained, and then one shot of monolith somehow. It was like everything's going right in these games.
So good.
Yeah, managed to kill him. Then that was that. And through also him playing very aggressively, managed to do a lot of shooting into the destroyers, and it became very tit for tat at that point. So he played really well with his teleporting. So once he sort of saw how much damage I did, then was really respective of it from then on. Mm-hmm. I think we spoke about it after the game, and I was like, he was just sadly a bit too late on the respecting the damage because the damage has happened.
Yes, and this is something Necron players do sometimes do, is they invite you to see what you can do. And it's like, don't do that. just you're really tough. You could also play like you can get hurt, and then you're really tough and hard to get. You know,
yeah, like that. I think that's the thing. Ultimately, is that you know, like I think if he played like how he did for turns 3 to 5 for the game, I actually think he would have won.
Yeah,
it was just the point of like I tell him the damage, and then he sees the damage. That's the it's out in one ear, out one ear, out the other. Then it's become oh no. Like,
I think
I've now visualized it.
It's a common thing with Votann because you'll go, well, it's strength 7 minus 1, 2. They're like, oh, fight, will be winning me on 5s, and they kind of forget to continue to.
Yeah,
it could be judged. It could be +1 a hit, +1 a wound.
Yeah. And there's things like the Sagittar and Ancestral Sentence where until you see what the 6 is popping off does, you don't really appreciate. Because that's the thing, the people go, well, how dangerous is a Sagittar? I'm like, well, it could do absolutely nothing, but it can also one-shot like a devastating number of different things depending on what it decides to feel like when it shoots.
Yeah. So that was that. Then just became a sort of trading game. Because I went second, that was a massive advantage because we're playing supply drops, the ones where they leave. So I managed to, in my turn 4, I charged every single unit into all of his units so he couldn't teleport. And then that pretty much won me the game because he then couldn't get where he needed to for his tactical cards. I could then move on to that final objective score of 15, and that was it. So,
amazing.
Yeah, so good little play there, showing that Votann having all these units is really helpful, which was great. And then I went into the final versus Guard. Now that was just a interesting game of just indirect people running at me. Again, like we've spoken about already, it's very much a game of they all hide in the building. Solar's there doing his bit. You've got tank commanders who can push up aggressively. You have to put a lot into killing them, and then eventually they die, and then they shoot everything in the world. Basilisks there slowing your movement. You've got even Medusas on Manticores doing all sorts of indirect. And yeah, like they just have the tools to do it. And the good thing with them is they don't have to see. So you can't then interact with them. As long as they screen themselves out, that's all they have to worry about.
Yeah.
It's not the case of they're having to worry, like, if I put this in line of sight and I kill you, like if I don't kill you, you're then going to fight me back. Hello.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to adjust my sound settings. And I managed to mute something.
Yeah.
No, you muted me. Yeah. Sorry,
Jake. Do you want to start that again?
So the main thing I'll just say is, luckily I stopped when I don't know when it did it, but
we'll find it and adjust it. It's all good.
The main thing that I'll say is, it's the indirect, and the main thing with them knowing that they can just shoot you indirectly, and then they don't have to see you, so they're never having to put something in harm's way.
Yeah.
They could just do that for the whole game. They can then cleverly screen you out with their units while doing the cards and stuff, and ultimately just results in like a very slow grinding down of the army. And so finished 5-1 there, got 8th place. Was sad not to get higher, considering managed to go 5-0 and then lose the final.
It's the finalists' peril, though, right? It always goes that way. If you make the final, there's always the risk because it's the hardest game.
yeah, of course. Sorry. Hang on 2 seconds. I just got to... Right, don't worry about that. I'll sort that in a sec. I'll go. So it's very much the case of the finalist peril. Could have finished a bit higher, but these things happen. I was still super happy with the result, putting in the results for Votann and stuff.
Yes,
was really happy with my list as well. Like,
it's cool. It was very fresh.
Beating a lot of the big sort of meta armies as well made me feel better. And that's the thing I found, is that I haven't struggled against Hypercrypt, haven't as much struggled against Custades as I thought.
No.
But have struggled against Death Guard and Guard.
Well, Death Guard are very good.
Yeah. I mean, I think as a general, Death Guard are quite good.
Yeah.
They're definitely very good into Votann.
Yeah.
They're always one, if I see them at an event, I'm a little worried about going into Death Guard.
Completely. And I think Votann are in a spot where it's slightly uphill into a lot of these matchups. So if you're very good, it's not going to feel too bad. But if someone is very good on the other side on one of these top armies, it's extremely difficult, I think. And that's the key thing. But it's very reassuring, I think, that the meta's in a place where you can just outplay and muscle your way through a bunch of the things that are supposed to be the new hotness, right? That's always a relief after a data slate when that's the way things are.
Yeah, of course.
That's a really good run from you as well. I think it was the first sort of serious result anyone put up with Votann after the slate, really. So it was very nice to see. Nice to see the Rock and Stone gang representing. So that's what we like.
Yeah,
all right.
So that was that. Other events of note, I guess, South Coast. I went 2 and 3 then going on the back of and playing Alex Petford while I was 0 and 2 is definitely not what I expected of.
That's incredible. That's so good.
We both just sort of looked at each other and I was like, if you lose this, Malik and that's going to make fun of you. If I lose this, my lad's making fun of me. And we were just sat there like, and do you know what? I will say this as well. Alex was probably one of my most favourite games of 40k ever.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really, really nice guy. We both just played it in a really good way. I nearly had him as well, and he did so well to play. He played like a really good game. He got really unlucky as well, turns 1-2 with his cards. So the fact he managed to pull it back as well as he did, on top of also like denying me, and he really showed me the power of like this Death Guard build with these Predators and Plague Bursts. And it also was really reassuring to me because he was someone where he was saying he really didn't like the army and stuff, and he was still doing stuff with it like that. Just shows how good of a player he was. So
he's very strong, very, very strong.
So
I'm glad that was a good game. It's because it was just such a funny situation, isn't it, to be down there? I remember we had one where Chris was 1 and 2 after day 1 at an event and got Innes Wilson in the morning, and you're like, this just doesn't happen. Like, this is not good.
Yeah, and I was just there like, how is this? We both like, when we saw it, it was like, there's no way. And I went to walk over to the table and he was sat there and I'd actually never met him before, just knew the name. So, and I was like, oh, okay, hi, nice to meet you. And then when he had his England objectives out and I was like, it is you. What are you doing here? And he was like, let's just play the game. But yeah, so it was great. And something that I've learned a lot from, and I probably learned more from that game than any of my games at Beachhead or any of my games at the rest of the South Coast. So massive shout out to him. He was a hero. But yeah, sort of things that happened though as well. Death Guard then just showed me that is a really, I think the -1 save then makes it even worse of a matchup.
Yes, yeah.
And that's all the events I've had really, that I've learned from. I had a little GT this weekend, but to be honest, it was all just the same armies and same everything. So
yeah, and I think that highlights that the meta is in quite a swingy, variable place depending on what you hit when you hit it. At the moment, there's all sorts of different stuff out there. The matchups are very variable, depending. It feels quite rock paper scissors as well, and terrain and matchups will have a big say. So that's I say I was going 2-3 with Thousand Suns at Nottingham at some point in that same time frame, Jake. So I know your feeling. I got too clever, mixed with something I don't understand, and had a very tough weekend. Right, James, let's talk about your run with the Votann at Northampton then.
Yeah, so it's obviously a big event for me because it's my first one back in about 7 or 8 months. So I was like, okay, let's go. First game, Canoptic Court, fantastic. And I think it's kind of what Jay was saying. I think he got a bit greedy on how tanky his stuff can be. Didn't take damage. Started his Catan on the line within 3 of the reanimator because I think he was thinking if he goes for it, he won't kill them. I'll reanimate 2d3 wounds. I'm fine. And I just popped the Nightbringer straight away. And then he was like, I'm not quite sure. I think then he was a bit too nervous. So like the rates moved up a little bit less than they probably should have done. The Void Dragon moved up a little bit less than he should have done. So then turn 2, we go in, pick the Void Dragon up. I then killed the 2 Catans.
That's all the damage output, right?
And then he was running 3 Doomstalkers, which actually were really annoying.
No, those are horrible, especially in Canoptic.
Dawn of War deployment, he had like 1, 2, 3, and they could see most of the board, or like 2 of them could see most of my units without having to move. which was painful. But that was fine. I think it was, kind of went through that one. Game 2, we went into Vanguard Space Marines.
Okay. I found that one very tough with Votann in a team scrim, actually.
So it's the first time I played it, and it was kind of going through what it could do. It's like, I've got this massive unit. They can infiltrate. I'm like, well, if he does that and he goes first, that's really bad news.
Yeah.
And we were deploying, and I'm like, well, I'm going to put, because I'm in my list with the 20 Hearthguard in, and then the Berserks, like everything goes in a transport or starts off the board. So I only have I think 7 drops. So I'm dropping things, and I'm like, I'm going to run out of stuff before he places this big aggressive Calgar unit. So I was like, well, I'm just going to stick my Berserks at the front. We were playing on Search and Destroy, so it's an 18-inch gap for the deployments. And then he puts them right in the small L, and I'm like, this guy wants to go first. We rolled. I got a first turn.
Mm-hmm.
Berserks pop out of one Sagittar. Hearthguard pop out of a landfall. Multi-charge both. I picked them all up except the
Goodness gracious. Okay.
James.
And it was just, and then I think from then it was just like I'd basically given him 2 assets for one of his big ones. He then didn't pick up the 5-man unit of Hearthguard with the charm, which then meant they then went on and did. I think I drew deploy teleport homer behind enemy lines. So it's like, well, they're just going to move 5 inches and deploy teleport homer. That's an easy 8 points.
Yeah.
Then his Centurions came out, picked a little bit up, but then the big 10-man brick comes in and picks them up.
Yeah.
So it was just rough. And by then he's got nothing left.
Yeah. I think the Vanguard Marines with the Centurion devs, you have to play it so carefully against Votann. Those Centurions have to live at the back of the board, picking Votann stuff off for quite a long time, while all the crappy stuff dies and keeps you back. And if you don't respect the Votann, then you're going to die. You're going to die real hard.
This was the problem because he lost that aggressive blob turn 1. He's then got to throw the Centurions forward to try and make the deficit he's got then. And Berserks into, Gravis Marines.
It's just so funny. It's their perfect situation.
He's my 1 CP for AP4.
Yeah, so good.
He's at least 6 wounds. All those aggressors are dead.
Yeah. It's wonderful. So absolutely wonderful.
It's quite nervous going into that one because I've never played it before.
Yeah, and the tools are there to really hurt you, but they have to be used in a very particular way.
And that went quite well. And then I went into Tyranids Game 3, Invasion Fleet, which is a list I've seen a little bit. Kind of runs a few more Gorns, a couple of Exocrines, double Maliceptor.
Yeah.
And the land force were just incredible. I mean, those Magna Rail, I was like, he's going to put a Magna Rail and some bolt cannons into one Exocrine, and that Exocrine died. And then the other one's going to do the same, and that Exocrine died. I was just like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah.
And he did well, with regenerating some of the gargoyles, regenerating some of the termagants, and a bit so he captured a lot more points, I think, than he would have done if he hadn't made those moves. But it was rough because every time one of his monsters came out to do something, it shot, didn't do anything because it's Votann, and then died in return.
Yeah. I've found that we hoover up small nids, and your list with the double Magna Rail just loves those big bugs. Just absolutely loves them.
That was the game I was like, the Magna Rails are staying.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. I've still not. I do want to use double Magna Rail at some point, just to see what that's like.
They're just a lot of fun. Which goes to game 4, where the Magna Rails didn't do anything. It was Hypercrypt Necrons with a Monolith, Nightbringer, Transcendent, and he was running the horrible Night Size build. I said it earlier, it shouldn't be a thing. It's amazing. Effectively, Night Size comes down, 10 Immortals and a Plasma Monster jump out, do their thing, end of the fight phase, they jump back in the Night Size. You can't deal with it. You can overwatch them. And if you judge them, obviously you can do the shoot back, but there's so many things you want to judge in Necrons. Do you want to judge unit of 10 Immortals?
Probably not.
I think now I probably do. And it was this Night Scythe was just, that was the real pain. and then he kept popping the 4-up on the monolith. And then every time I fired a magma rail into it, he'd save it.
Yeah.
And then I'd fire a magma rail into something else and he'd fail it. And I was like, it's just this monolith. Like, this monolith just is immune to magma rails.
Yeah. That's where the single shot is going to be very swingy, isn't it?
And we were playing Scorched Earth with hidden supplies. So already quite a lot of pressure to try and keep the midfield to get either to get the 5 points or to get the 10. I kind of knew going into Hypercrypt, I had to defend my home objective as hard as I could and just forget about trying to get the 10 for his, which is kind of how it works. So I got the 5 and he didn't get anything. And I won by 3 points.
Brutal.
Fine,
Absolutely brutal.
And it was just this
Scorched Earth is a horrible mission. I find it really grindy and scary.
Like a unit comes down, I trade it, then one of his teleports back and picks up that one, and then another unit pops out of transport, kills whatever they needed to, and then another one of his teleports and then picks that. And it was this really weird kind of like things bouncing around all over the place, picking things up and then not picking things up when they should have done. I ran 5 berserks into a monolith on 2 wounds and didn't kill it.
Crazy.
And I was just like, this. I rolled the 16 attacks and hit twice, and then failed to wound both, and was just like, what is this?
Yeah, berserks do have that in them. They do have a proper off day in them sometimes. I love them, but there's sometimes they're like, nope, sorry, I've done 3 wounds. They've saved 2 of them. It's all gone wrong.
Which is a story into game 6 actually as well with them.
Yeah.
And this, I think that game 4 and game 6 were definitely. I was like, I need more than 5 berserks. I need to get more. I need to get at least 10 in this list. So we go through game 4. Game 5, we go into Thousand Suns, which is really ironic because the guy I had lunch with, he was this Thousand Suns guy, both 4-0, talking about like what we didn't want to go into, what we did want to go into. And I was like, I'm not sure about the Thousand Sun match. I've done it before, and it's a bit weird. And then we get drawn, and I was like, well, I guess I'm playing Thousand Suns.
Yeah.
Got the first turn. He deployed, so he had Magnus, a Rhino, Demon Prince without wings, and all of his characters like behind, or like I think 3 out of 4 of the characters behind a small L.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I can move block the Rhino, can stop the rubrics coming out of there. The Demon Prince then can't get through, and he's then got to deal with 3 bikes. Yes, it's only 3 bikes, but fine. Zoom the 3 bikes, could get a little bit of a sight on Magnus. So I was like, well, we'll go for him. He's done the -1 damage, fine. Threw a grenade, did 6 mortal wounds. Fired all the autocannons, all the ion, all the shotguns, did another 6 damage. So I'm like, great, Magnus is on 6 wounds and he hasn't even taken a turn yet.
Oh my word!
That is absolutely brutal.
Pioneers are amazing, man. They're so good.
Honestly, like,
they're so good. And grenade is our way through those big horrible things sometimes. I've still never done this full 6 mortals with a grenade. I did 5 at the weekend. That was the first.
Yeah.
So most I've got.
It felt
5,
really
I think.
good.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
My 5 was very satisfying because the guy had put a couple of wounds on Ornvar because you can do some weird shit with Ornvar's unit where you allocate the wounds. I was like, well, Ornvar's got a couple of wounds. Here's a grenade. Ornvar explodes. Get in the bin. 2-up invuln that. Okay, so that sounds like that helps a lot.
and it massively move blocked him, and I'd set a landfall up so he could get an angle if he double moved Magnus, but then Magnus had to be in the open.
Yeah,
so I was like, you can move him out. You'll be in range of everything else in my army. You can have this landfall. That's fine, and that's exactly what he did. And like anyone who's played the Votann Thousand Suns match, Magnus picks up a landfall like that. It's not.
Oh yeah, Magnus picks up any Votann unit he gets his teeth into, just annihilates it.
I mean, at least the Hearthguard have an invuln.
They do.
And the Wayfield crest.
They do. But yeah.
The landfort's got nothing. You're like, I've got void armor. I mean,
the landfall just goes.
I've got no save.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it was just I just basically kept throwing stuff at him, kept him right in his deployment zone, and then just scored a load of primary, scored all the secondary, and then.
Oh yeah, because it's the take and hold one, isn't it? Yeah. So you just have to die for the cause. Nice.
Yeah. And it was fine. They did it gloriously.
Well done, Dwarves. Proud of you.
No.
Yeah, T-Suns is a horrible matchup, I think. There's a lot that can go wrong. I think they're just as... It's always the case with T-Suns that they're just as scared of you as you are of them. But the damage they can do is just catastrophic when you're an elite, expensive army like Votann.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the Infernal Masters.
Yeah. The flame guys.
Do the little thing, pop off, and then they just go, here's like 1 million damage. That's one thing. And they're like, right, now let me roll the rest of the squad. And you're like, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah, they're very good right now as well in a sort of sleeper kind of way. T-Suns, they've got a lot of game.
I do think they're quite good.
If I ever learn how to actually properly play them, maybe one day I'll win some games. We'll see.
That was game 5. And then, obviously, UKTC, we made the top cut.
Yes, you did. Well done. We were cheering you on in the chat at the time, I remember.
Yeah, which is really good. Obviously, not having been to a GT in a while, and like the last 2 UKTC events, I'd gone into top cut, and I was like, if I just go 5-0, I'll be happy. If I go 4-1, we'll be happy as well. So to make the top cut, I was really pleased with.
Yeah. Still got it.
And I get Manny Chima.
Oh.
Yes, you did. Yeah, it's probably the worst matchup you could have got in that top set, I think.
He's an amazing player. I think best in the world at the moment, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
The champ. Or
played a couple of times before and had quite a tight Necron Tyranid game with Crush and Stampede until he lived. I think he had one of the big Gribbly ones and the Swarm Lord both survive on a wound, and that was like, well, that was game then.
Yeah.
No.
And then another time, a few LDTs ago, he was playing the Eldari plane bullshit.
Oh yeah,
about 7 planes.
Oh yes.
So I played him a few times, and he beat me both times. So I was like, "This is the time." It wasn't the time. Hammer and Anvil, 4 hidden supplies, so 4 in the middle, take and hold, which is just it's perfect for custodes. It's just, and the problem is on Hammer and Anvil, it's really narrow map. Hidden supplies, the objectives are all stringable for custodes.
Yes,
you can always have fight first.
Yeah.
He's got the -1 damage for all the Hearthkin, other than the big Grim Demeanor blob. And then because the way UKTC terrain is, especially on the Hammer and Anvil map, you can basically go, I'm going to advance all Wardens turn 1. They're going to hide. You won't be able to see them all. Then turn 2, they're all going to advance and charge, and they're in your defense zone.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'll throw him a Landfort and a Sagitaur, and then at least we'll be fighting in the middle of the board. Which is what I did, and then they came in the middle board, killed both the Landfort and the Sagitaur.
Yeah.
And then my Berserks went in. He fought first, fought on death, rolled 1-4 up.
Oh.
Hit twice, wounded once. He saved a save, and he was like, well, fine. That's,
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So then my turn 2, come down. The 10 block picks up Trajan and his guard unit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good.
Then the Grimnir, the bikes, and I think a Landfall pick up the other Landfall that was left. Picked up a unit of Wardens through the 4-up field no pain.
Yeah.
That's very good.
But by then I don't have enough left really.
Yeah, he's just been out muscled.
And because it's the take and hold and hidden supplies. It's just rough because he can control that whole mid border for objectives.
Yeah.
My big 10-man unit went for his home, and then basically took that home and then scored, I think, like 35 points on their own. But then I've lost that whole 10 block to do anything with.
Yeah.
Kind of frustrating part. But then I'd kind of run out of stuff by them to not do that.
Yeah.
It was quite funny because we both drew basically no secondaries for turn 1 and 2. So like his 2 cards he couldn't get, then my 2 cards I couldn't get, then his
not ideal.
Cards, I think he got 3 points. Then I got like 2 points. And then the turn 3, I got capture enemy outpost, storm hostile objective. I was like, well, there's an easy 13 for the backfield. But yeah, no, so I lost that one. And then Vic lost his semi-final, but scored slightly higher, so he got 3rd place.
So you were 4th.
So I got 4th.
4th is still at a super major is very, very good.
Yeah.
I was buzzing.
Hard run.
I'm really, really pleased.
Yeah, really, really tough run. And also, that's your first big event back as well. And you've just backhanded your way through to the semi-finals. That's pretty epic. Pretty epic.
That wasn't that an easy run. I mean, both
No, it wasn't at all. It was horrible.
No, it was a very tough run.
Yeah. Got to sample all the meta menaces that are out there right now.
Yeah. It's not fun.
I was just praying not to run into Dave Gaillard's guard.
Yeah.
And then he lost game 4, and I was like, fine, we're in.
We're okay. We've made it, boys. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And you can kind of like there's just a few of those gatekeeper matchups right now where Votann definitely have the tools. They can get it done. But again, they're relying on a few things that are sometimes out of their control, and it can be very, very tough when it goes against you. But they are, it's cool. It's nice. I'm very chuffed that you both continued to shine with them after the Dataslate. I think that's really cool. I think I don't think they're a sort of hot topic now in quite the same way, but I still think there's people plugging away. We've still got a lot of people in our Discord bubbling away about them and enjoying them a lot, I think.
I mean, they're hovering between like a 49 to 51% win rate. Which
that's
is
kind of that's
exactly
it.
Where you want to be, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they were. Obviously, that's what they were gunning for the first time. They slightly overcooked it, and now we've got there. We've made it. We've landed it perfectly balanced, as all things should be with the Votann. So that's very, very exciting. All right, cool. Any other concluding thoughts, guys, or should we wrap up there? We've kind of hit the hour mark, I think.
Yeah, I think.
I'm just going to finish this with, ironically, I think me and James actually have moved on to the same army, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
We're both
Spoilers.
It's going to be, what do we call it? Crutonstone.
Crutonstone. Yeah, I was going to say, you've both got. So I've been doing this. I'm excited about the Orc books. I've been playing around with some killer cans, so I'm on a painting project hype with the Orcs at the moment, but that's miles away. Yeah. But yeah, you boys have both been suckered in with the Crute box, so
I've already got 2 on the way.
Yeah,
amazing. I've got one, and I'm waiting to see the rest, like as in terms of like when they come out separately. I don't really need more than 2 boxes, but I just think I know that's not Votann related, but I just think it's really funny that the 2 Votann players have just then decided to go play Crute.
It looks very fun.
There's going to be no battle suits, no tanks.
No, just pure Crute, all Crute. Got to be done. Nah, it's all right. We will be dabbling in other projects, but we will continue to keep you guys on the pulse of Votann life. As I say, I think it looks like it's going to be quite a stable meta for Votann going forwards. But we'll keep an ear to the ground, and we'll keep letting you know of any developments and changes. Yeah. And obviously, we'll be back with some fresh experiences and some fresh takes very soon. So see you guys out there. Thank you very much for tuning in. Sorry, Jake, for muting you midway through talking. I know that's not the best host manners, but we'll do what we can.
That's all right. We'll play it off as redacted information. There we go.
Yeah, I'll get a little thing edited on there. That's how you get away with everything in this game, right? Yeah. Wonderful. All right, cheers. We've been Rock and Stone. We'll be back again soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.